would you think if a top smartphone company launched a pretty solid mid-range phone in the US and barely told anyone about it? You'd expect big promotions, ads everywhere, maybe even a launch event, right? But Samsung has done something very different with the Galaxy A56 5G, and not in a good way. The phone, which actually looks like a decent option for many people, showed up quietly in the US market with a price tag of $499.99. That's not bad at all, especially when you consider what it offers. But instead of making a big deal out of it, Samsung delayed its release and then dropped it into the market with almost no excitement, no energy, and honestly, no real effort to let people know it exists. And that's frustrating, not just because it's a missed opportunity, but because this kind of strategy keeps happening again and again. It makes you wonder, does Samsung even want its mid-range phones to succeed in the US? Let's be clear, the Galaxy A56 5G isn't a bad phone. In fact, for the price, it checks a lot of the right boxes. It has a large 6.7-inch Super AMOLED display, which is one of the better types of screens you can get in this range. It offers crisp colors, deep blacks, and great viewing angles. On top of that, it comes with 45-watt charging support, which is actually faster than the high-end Galaxy S25, believe it or not. The performance is described as acceptable, which isn't amazing, but let's be real, that's exactly what most users expect and need in a mid-range device. You can scroll, chat, watch videos, take decent photos. It handles all the daily stuff well enough. But Samsung's biggest mistake wasn't in the specs, it was in how they treated the launch. Delaying the release in one of the world's largest smartphone markets made no sense. And when the phone finally arrived, there was no real push to create any excitement. No trailers, no big headlines, no influencer buzz. It was almost like Samsung hoped no one would notice, and that's the real problem. This isn't the first time Samsung has done this. Over the last few years, we've seen them treat several mid-range Galaxy A phones like they didn't really matter. Instead of building a clear strategy for these devices, it feels like they've been setting them up to quietly disappear. That's disappointing because the US needs good mid-range options. Not everyone wants to spend over $1,000 on a phone. Many people are looking for solid performance, good design, and long battery life without breaking the bank. The Galaxy A56 5G could have been that option. Is upgrading from the Galaxy A54 to the new Galaxy A56 actually worth it, especially if you've already had your phone for 2 years? Well, the Galaxy A56 is finally out in the United States, and it's bringing several big changes that might convince you to make the switch. The phone is now available for $499, no contract or trade-in required. And since Samsung never released the Galaxy A55 in the US, the A56 becomes the true follow-up for A50 for users. Right off the bat, one of the first things you'll notice is the larger screen. The Galaxy A56 has a 6.7-inch Super AMOLED display, compared to the 6.4-inch one on the A54, making it noticeably better for watching videos, browsing, or gaming. And it's not just bigger, it's also brighter. The A56 hits 1,900 nits of peak brightness and 1,200 nits in high brightness mode, while the A54 topped out at 1,000 nits. That's a solid improvement, especially in bright outdoor conditions. Next, let's talk battery. When the A54 was released, Samsung claimed today battery life, but many users found that a bit optimistic. With the A56, this promise feels more real. Tests showed it lasted around 52 hours on a full charge with about 8 hours of screen-on time, which is impressive. Performance also sees a big leap. Powered by the Exynos 1580 processor and backed by 8 GB of RAM, the A56 runs One UI much more smoothly than the A54. You'll feel the difference during everyday use, app switching, and even gaming. Samsung has also made big improvements in camera speed. The selfie camera has been upgraded, and the photo-taking experience is much quicker. For example, the A54 takes 800 milliseconds to capture a photo, while the A56 cuts that down to just 240 milliseconds, closer to what you'd get from a flagship like the Galaxy S4. When switching between lenses, the A56 does it in just 430 milliseconds, compared to 980 milliseconds on the A55. The build quality is another big step up. Instead of plastic, the A56 now uses Gorilla Glass Victus Plus for protection on both the front and back, along with an aluminum frame, which gives it a more premium feel. Charging is faster too, with support for 45-watt wired charging, which is a welcome addition for users who hate waiting around. Software-wise, the Galaxy A56 runs Android 15-based One UI 7 right out of the box. Have you ever thought about getting a foldable phone, but then changed your mind because of that annoying crease down the middle of the screen? You're not alone. For years, the crease has been one of the biggest complaints when it comes to foldable devices. Even though Samsung has come a long way with its Galaxy Z Fold series, that visible line where the screen bends just won't go away. The Galaxy Z Fold 7, which was just released, is the thinnest and lightest foldable Samsung has ever made. It feels more refined, more polished, and generally better in every way than the ones before it. But still, that crease is there, and for some people, it's enough to keep them from buying into the foldable experience. Now here's where things start to get interesting. A new report from well-known analyst Ming-Chi Kuo says Samsung might be working on a real fix for the crease problem. According to him, the upcoming Galaxy Z Fold 8 could feature a brand new type of display plate made from metal and drilled with lasers. This design could allow the screen to bend more smoothly without putting all the pressure on a single line. In theory, this would finally eliminate the crease, or at least make it so minor that you wouldn't even notice it. That would be a big deal for people like me and maybe you too, who have been waiting for that one last improvement before switching to foldables. What makes this rumor even more exciting is that the panel might be made by Fine Tech, a South Korean company, and they may also be supplying the same display to Apple for their first foldable iPhone, which is expected to come out in 2026. If both Apple and Samsung are working on this new kind of screen, that tells us something important. A crease-free future might actually be closer than we thought. Of course, there's a catch. These new panels are more expensive than the one Samsung uses now, which could mean a higher price tag for the Galaxy Z Fold 8. We don't know if Samsung will absorb that extra cost or pass it on to the customer, but chances are the price could go up. Still, if you've been holding off on getting a foldable because of the crease, you might be okay paying a little more for something that finally looks and feels seamless. Another fun detail is that Samsung might not stop there. Some leaks even suggest that the company is also working on a tri-foldable phone, which could be even more flexible and open up like a brochure. That's something we'll probably hear more about in the near future. As for me, I've personally avoided foldables for one reason: the crease. Some users say you get used to it, and maybe that's true, but I know it would bother me every time I touch the screen. That slight dent just feels out of place on such a high-tech device. So if the Galaxy Z Fold 8 really does fix this with the help of that new laser-drilled display plate,